Welcome to the Solid Verbal. And now, Dan and Ty.
Dan Rubenstein, over half of the AP Top 25 was in serious peril in week 8. We had 9 of the top 25, 4 of the top 10 lose. We had 4 other teams spread out across the top 25 that at some point or another were in serious danger of losing. This is seemingly becoming a trend now. This is like a couple straight weeks of this. It's really playing on the nerves. It's great if you're a college football sicko like you and I, and we need stuff to talk about. But holy hell, this thing is ramping up. This thing is getting crazy. We're only about midway through October, Dan. There is a long way to go, my friend. Welcome back to you. Welcome back to one and all who have downloaded, who have supported. Some of you may be watching live out on YouTube. If so, we will be taking some of your questions a little bit later on in this broadcast, Dan. But
yes,
welcome back, my friend. How are you?
I'm good. If you're watching live, you might be split screening it or quad boxing it with the pride of the Patriot League, Lafayette and their Leopards, taking it to the anchor of the new Pac-12. Ugh. Oregon State on the road. Lafayette up 13-10 at halftime at time of recording. I'm good. This was a relentless week 8 to me. This was from the start, from the jump. You can go back to Tuesday. You can go to Thursday. You can go to Friday. You can go all day Saturday. It was unrelenting and nonstop. And I've got a lot of thoughts, as I'm sure everybody watching live, listening after the fact, co-hosting with me, I'm sure everybody does. Let's upload and download.
It's really difficult,
yeah,
when we do these reaction streams at midnight to organize our thoughts in some sort of timely fashion and furthermore put them down on a document in some way that makes logical sense.
Yeah.
Because nothing that we have seen over the last couple weeks has made a whole lot of logical sense. We have a lot of weird results. You mentioned Lafayette's up at halftime. Like we have
Stanford's
Stanford's up. We have seen a lot of stuff like that over the last couple weeks. And as we get deeper into conference slates, obviously, as we happen upon some odd circumstances that only occur the deeper we get into the conference schedules, my sense is that this isn't going to go away anytime soon.
No.
It doesn't matter if the slate, when we preview it on a Tuesday or a Thursday, appears as if there aren't going to be any killer games on it. This just keeps happening, Dan, where the games keep finding us. We're not necessarily finding them, and they're all kind of crazy. So it's great if you're a college football fan. We're going to talk through, like 8 of the big games that really jumped out to us. There are far too many to go into detail on. If we want to try and do all of the games across college football, of course, anything.
I want all of them.
Well, anything that we don't get to on the reaction stream, we'll try to build into what we talk about on Tuesday and Thursday of the coming week. But, for our purposes here, and I guess just for the sanity of those watching and listening,
right,
let's try to confine it to the 8 biggest games and maybe some honorable mentions that jumped out to us as we watch college football week 8.
All right. It's an interim type of season. Obviously, coaches are being fired left and right. Alex Mortensen and UAB.
Yeah, baby. Go. Go Blazers.
The South's Jerry Neuheisel, right? Nepo success all over the place. Alex Mortensen, the son of the late, great Chris Mortensen. Okay. But UAB did beat undefeated Memphis. We should point out.
It was a wild game, too. That was a wild freaking game.
Crazy game. Memphis looked like they were going to tie the score late, and between penalties and knees being down, it didn't happen for Memphis, but a crazy game at the end. Good for UAB after they fire Trent Dilfer to get that W against a headline opponent. Of course, a great performance, especially through the air for the Blazers. Okay, where else would you like to start?
Why don't we start on Friday night, Dan?
Let's.
Why don't we start on Friday night? Miami was about a 2-touchdown favorite at home, and we had joked about the traffic situation in Miami. What's the stadium going to look like?
That was a pretty good thing from me, right? To look up traffic patterns ahead of this game.
I would expect nothing less, my friend.
Thank you very much. Little
but Miami was a heavy favorite hosting Louisville. And this was a game in which we have seen Miami over the years, just odd results, not always a loss, right? Not always the kind of thing that you even remember.
Sure.
But these are the types of games that if Miami is truly back, if they are back to being the U and the swagger has returned, these are the types of games that they need to win going away.
Okay.
Louisville snapped Miami's 10-game home winning streak. They won this game 24-21. You may recall one member of this dynamic duo talked about this last Tuesday, Thursday, that Jeff Brom doesn't typically get outcoached in games like this. They don't always win,
right?
But they would be ready for Miami. And as such, they pulled out all the stops here. We had a fake reverse and a fake field goal on the opening drive.
Yes.
We had 3 different guys take snaps at quarterback for Louisville. It felt like they had Miami on their heels the entire game, for the majority of the game at a bare minimum.
Yes.
So on top of that, it was a good game for Miller Moss. It was a really good game for Isaac Brown, with the exception of a crucial fumble in the fourth quarter. And it was a huge win for the Louisville Cardinals, who now suddenly are thrust into the ACC championship conversation by knocking off the presumed best team in the ACC, despite the fact that they were a 13.5-point dog.
Yes. Uninspired performance in a lot of different facets offensively, which is nothing to say of the turnovers for Miami on offense. But defensively, Miami needed to adjust more, but it wasn't catastrophic. There was way too much Isaac Brown, I'm sure, for the fans of Miami's liking, way too much Chris Bell, but this wasn't an explosive, consistent performance from Louisville's offense. It was a good performance from Louisville's offense. Miami wasn't really able to adjust and get in the faces of receivers all too often. The tackling wasn't amazing, wasn't the best tackling day for Miami, but the game was still, despite the turnovers. And by the way, it was 4 turnovers, 4 interceptions for Carson Beck, 5 if we don't count the ticky-tack roughing the passer that didn't even get a flag. It didn't get a flag. It just had refs talking with each other, huddling up, football term, to discuss a penalty after the fact. It was a really, really bad day for Carson Beck. And we're not defined by our worst days. We're not defined by our best days. This was Carson Beck's clear worst day as a college football quarterback. And even though Louisville, I don't believe, scored any points off of those interceptions, certainly those are potential points off the board for Miami. So huge difference maker for the Canes with rest at home. Nothing short of, especially on offense, wildly disappointing for a Friday night. They couldn't run the ball. They didn't really try to run the ball with any sort of creativity. I think it was, they run for 60 some odd yards.
63 yards. It was 2.6 per carry.
2.6 per carry. And I can imagine that if you're a Miami fan, you are overwhelmed with disgust for what you watched from this Miami team offensively. And again, it was a horrible night for Carson Beck. Doesn't mean he's a horrible quarterback. Doesn't mean Miami is suddenly going to be horrible on offense. But I saw people calling him Arson Beck, setting dreams on fire. And I didn't think that was right. First of all, I just he's still a college kid, and we have to respect the process of what Miami's going through. So it was horrible. And this does change the outlook for Miami's season. They've got a couple of tough road games ahead. They need some losses now to break tiebreakers. They'll be okay. I think we should come away impressed with Louisville's resolve on the road, again winning at Miami for the second consecutive visit, and coming up with those big plays late. And God, man, Carson Beck at the end in the presser, sort of alluding to the fact that the receiver ran the wrong route, and it was a good play for the pressure package that Louisville was showing. It's like, you can't complain about that when you have 3-4 other picks. You got to say,
a tough look.
It wasn't my night. I have a lot of regrets.
Yeah, it's a tough look. I mean, I get the frustration. Like you say, he's still a young guy. I understand where he's coming from. But more to the point on Louisville and the coaching job that they did, and I guess to further emphasize the whole notion that Jeff Brom is a really good big game coach.
Yeah.
He doesn't get out coached in these situations. Taylor McGregor, I don't know if you saw this, but asked him after the game, what was your game plan? Why were you so successful? What was the game plan? And he basically said that they wanted to make Carson Beck throw it more. They wanted to make Carson Beck beat him through the air. Now, obviously, Miami has a crazy amount of weaponry out wide.
Yes.
Like Malachi Tony's incredible, and he's a true freshman. He just turned 18. They mentioned that a couple times on the broadcast a couple weeks ago. He's going to have an amazing college career. Miami is not short on any of these athletes, but it seemed as though Jeff Brom saw something on the tape. He wanted to put Carson Beck in the position where he had to beat them, and lo and behold, he finishes with 4 interceptions. Now, look, we have a lot of Miami people that watch and comment on these videos and are very active in the Verballerhood. I want them to know that these comments are not intended to start any kind of dunk contest. Okay.
I'm ready. Come on, Ty.
Everything that you brought to this conversation is 100% accurate.
Okay.
And for sure, when your quarterback throws 4 interceptions against a good team, even if the good team is not converting those into points, you're going to lose that game more often than not. That's tough to come back from against a decent opponent.
Agree.
Certainly a lot of the blame for this loss belongs to Carson Beck.
Yeah.
But also, in case you're wondering about the source of our Mario Cristobal jokes.
Mario. Yeah.
Miami had the ball at the end of the game.
They did.
With all their timeouts, about a minute and a half. I think it might have been a minute and 45 left.
Yep.
Midfield. You've got a $10 million quarterback, or whatever they're paying him. They've got an offense that's been nails all season long. One of the best, if not the best, in the country. You've got an offensive line that maybe wasn't quite as dominant against Louisville, but is still one of the best in college football. They have every advantage in that situation. Cristobal ran clock.
I mean, they were inside the 35, right? With
kind of played for overtime. They were letting the clock wind.
I don't know. I mean, look, again, they were inside the 35.
They were playing for overtime. They played for overtime. They weren't taking shots. They were playing for overtime. What is that? What is that? I would expect this Miami team would be better than that. And I think if I were a fan of Miami, I would be wondering, why are we playing for a long field goal here?
Right.
Why? Why? They had a lot of momentum at the end of that game, by the way.
They did. Long drive.
They got the fumble from Isaac Brown. They got the short touchdown. It seemed as though things were very much going in Miami's direction. They had the wind at their back. And again, we see this ultra-conservative play calling down the stretch.
But I mean, not to defend whatever that was being thought about on the sideline, thinking that Carson Beck in this passing game is the answer and they're nails and they're going to finish this off is not necessarily the most obvious way of looking at the situation.
Well, hey, and especially since he had a rough night. I get that.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Okay, I get that. This wasn't the only situation in this game, Dan. There were earlier situations where they were settling for field goals as well.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just thought this was the epitome of why we have made the jokes. And Miami people can yell at me if they want.
Yeah.
Right? There's plenty of blame to go around. But that in particular, to me, really stuck out. Really stuck out as something that frustrated me, not really having a dog in the fight.
Okay.
And I'd be curious to hear from Miami people. So if I'm wrong, let me know. But otherwise, that was sort of my impression. Again, your final score was 24-21. That was how we kicked off this weekend. The number 2 team in the AP poll goes down. There were a number of other games, obviously, that we mentioned that I think rose to the same level as being just earth-shattering in some way, shape, or form.
Earth-shattering. Are we getting to Shohei Ohtani now? Is that what you're talking about? That's what I was watching at the same time.
We could probably do an hour and 15 on Shohei. And I'm not even a Dodgers fan, but that was ridiculous.
Oh, man. Okay. Where are we going?
Georgia wins 43-35 over Ole Miss.
Yes.
This was the highest ranked matchup of the day. 2 top 10 teams going at it. I think I had Ole Miss. Did you have Georgia in this one? Did you pick Georgia?
I think I had Ole Miss covering.
Okay.
But I don't know. I don't remember who I had winning. I did not see this going 43-35. I can tell you that with certainty.
No. Damn. Yeah. Talk about a shootout, my friend. Good hell. Defense was extremely optional in this game. You did not need to bring defense if you wanted to win this game. Ole Miss could not stop anything. Georgia was at least able to contain the run and put the game on the arm of Trinidad Chambliss. Trinidad Chambliss was solid for the most part. I thought he played another pretty good game. Eventually, Georgia found a way to kind of lock him down in the fourth quarter. They got a couple stops. It was just enough to give them that separation and eventually win again by 8 points. What were your impressions of this game? This was kind of back and forth. There were a lot of points. It did not go the way I expected. I thought this would be lower scoring, more defensive minded. And I have thoughts on that we can discuss. But what were your takeaways?
Basically, that the Georgia defense, when they needed to make plays in the fourth quarter, was absolutely everywhere. They were getting hands and arms and limbs in the way of passes. They were making plays on the ground. We came in and discussed that what Georgia has done well on defense, which hasn't been, a big thing for them succeeding on defense this season. They have stopped the run. And where Ole Miss has succeeded against the better defenses that they've played against this year, it's been Kawan Lacey on the ground, Trinidad Chambliss scrambling, and there was nothing there against this Georgia team.
No.
And that was for the majority of the game. There were plays here and there, but that was not anything that Ole Miss could hang their hats on. And the biggest takeaway, and I don't know how there's anything else here to take away, is that Gunnar Stockton is a closer. He is an absolute nails closer.
That's exactly what I wrote down.
And so just, not turning the ball over, making plays, improvising with his legs, with his arms downfield, spreading the ball around. The play calling seemed to be more varied than usual from Mike Bobo, finding ways to get receivers the ball in a variety of different looks. That there was just something about Georgia finishing. And there were times, and it was not always for Ole Miss. It just seemed that the Georgia legs were more active. There was more electricity to the Georgia legs on both sides of the ball in the fourth quarter than Ole Miss at times. And I don't know if that's a home field thing. I don't know if that's a confidence thing. I don't know if that's an exhaustion thing from Ole Miss, but there was something about, there was some sort of buzzing that came across on screen about where Georgia's energy level was late that really came through the screen for me. And so Gunnar Stockton was incredible. He was an absolute closer. And for them to do that in this kind of back and forth, where it actually really looked like Ole Miss was going to win this game.
They thought so too.
Coming up with big plays. It was DeJon Stribling, who I think that Oklahoma State transfer, right? They're utilizing different dudes in different ways. Trey Wallace, and it looked like they were going to go in there and steal it. And to Georgia's credit, they just wouldn't allow it.
Gunnar Stockton was 26 of 31 passing for 4 touchdowns. He also added 10 carries for 59 yards and a touchdown on the ground. One thing that jumped out to me, and it occurred again as I watched Alabama knock off Tennessee this evening. Some of the best versions of Georgia and Alabama that we've seen over the years gave off this aura of inevitability.
Yep.
Now, it's different. It's different this time around. Okay, I don't think anybody thinks Georgia or Alabama are bulletproof. That was how it used to feel. Maybe in the modern era with NIL and the transfer portal and all that, that's kind of gone by the wayside. But there is a different sense of inevitability with these two teams. In fact, the only time we didn't see it is when they played each other. But when they're playing everybody else, you just get this sense, especially with Georgia, because we've seen it a couple times now. They're just going to figure out a way to do it.
Right.
They're just going to figure out a way to do it. And that was my overarching impression of this Georgia team. They've been in a couple games like this now where the defense goes out the window. They just need an extra stop. They just need a big play. As you say often, winning is a skill.
It is a skill.
And however Georgia is getting these wins, okay, whether it's by scoring 43 points or 20 points, I mean, they have really been adaptable to the situation. And they now find themselves where they knocked off a top 5 team. They've only got 1 loss. They're clearly going to catapult up a couple notches at least in the polls, if not end up as a top 5 team when the latest batch of polls come out. This is one of those teams that's very formidable now. Not to say that there was any impression that they wouldn't be. It is still Georgia. But the ways that they are winning these games, you could definitely take one in a vacuum and say, they got a little bit lucky there.
Sure.
But we are starting to see more and more of this from Georgia. It doesn't mean that they're bulletproof, but it does mean that they are good at finding ways to get the dub. And I think they need to be commended for that. I really do. This was a good Ole Miss team. This is an Ole Miss team that's going to continue winning a bunch of games. I agree. I thought for a while there they were going to end up stealing this one from Georgia. But Georgia finds a way.
Georgia has treated this season as if they are playing an old RPG. I didn't play a lot of RPGs, but they're collecting gemstones and shields and weapons in creeks and in forests and in general stores. However they need to assemble everything that they find along their journey, they're doing it. Whether it's the Tennessee game, whether it's the Auburn game, whether it's the Ole Miss game, they're finding ways to sort of fill up their win satchel, Ty. Thank you. I, Dan Rubenstein, I'm running to be your college. Okay, continue.
43-35 was your final. Really, really nice win for the Georgia Bulldogs.
Yeah.
I just think it's interesting to look at what Georgia has left. Okay, we're only about halfway through the season now, maybe a little bit over it, depending on the team, but like they've got a Florida team still on the schedule in a rivalry spot. They're on the road at Mississippi State. They're home against Texas. They're home against Charlotte. They've got a neutral site game to close out the year against Georgia Tech. There's a pretty good chance that the most losable game on that remaining slate is a non-conference game against Georgia Tech.
Could be.
Because I have no idea what state Florida is in, even though they were in a close one. And, you know, at times, well, maybe we can talk about that one, maybe not. But Mississippi State's been a tough out, but I still think Georgia's better. Texas, we'll get to Texas, but that's a winnable game if you're the Georgia Bulldogs.
Hey, look, a lot of teams sometimes don't look great against Kentucky, but pull out the win against Kentucky. That's sort of the Mark Stoops, mantra. Like, we're not going to beat you, but we're pulling you down to our level.
I don't know. Texas has been playing a lot of Kentuckys this year.
That's true.
For whatever that's worth to you, again, Georgia 43, Ole Miss 35. Let's stay in the top 10. Let's go over the Big 12. This is a wild friggin' game, Dan.
Yeah.
This was Arizona State 26, Texas Tech 22. So if you didn't watch, here's what happened. Texas Tech storms back from a 12-point hole late in the game. They take a lead, 22-19.
Yes. Oh, and by the way, let's back up just real quick. Sam Leavitt is essentially a Friday morning decision.
Yes.
Right? It was Jeff Sims last week, and they got shellacked. Sam Leavitt does not look fully healthy, but looks gutty and aggressive in any way he can, given his injuries. And it is not a Baron Morton game for Texas Tech. It is a Will Hammond game starting at quarterback, who looked great in that Utah game, but in subsequent reps and appearances has looked less than stellar.
They give the ball back to Sam Leavitt.
Yeah.
With a 22-19 lead. In 86 seconds, he drives the field, 10 plays, 75 yards. It is mostly Sam Leavitt and Jordan Tyson. Jordan Tyson, by the way, was playing on one leg out there.
He was injured.
He was limping around most of the second half. They cap that off, a touchdown run with 34 seconds left from Rayleigh Brown. In the end, ASU wins 26-22. Again, another top 10 team going down. The fans stormed the field. I think they tore down the goalposts. On the point of Sam Leavitt, you're right. He was, like you said, a Friday morning decision. One of the reasons that I thought we both favored Texas Tech in this game was a point that you brought up about Sam Leavitt was even if he were going to play, given the fact that he just had a boot on his leg, we didn't expect that Sam Leavitt would be the best of Sam Leavitt, which is he likes to move around. He'll throw his body around. He plays a very physical brand of quarterback. We did see a little bit more of that than I expected, right?
He was physical, yeah.
There were comments from Kenny Dillingham earlier in the week that he was getting first-team reps, and we kind of side-eyed that because we heard that a week prior.
Right.
But Kenny Dillingham did make mention of the fact that Sam Leavitt looked a lot more like himself. And that was kind of my impression here, just watching him out there. Maybe not 100%, but definitely looked more like the Sam Leavitt that I think everybody gets so excited about. And certainly on that final drive where they went down the field 75 yards very quickly, it was all the reasons that people have been excited about ASU, you know, especially on offense. They were able to get the job done in a really big way. And then if you look at it, I guess, from the other perspective, like Tech couldn't really do much on offense until later in this game. They finished with less than 300 yards, 276, give or take. Maybe I got that number wrong, but
uneven play calling and execution, I would say.
Uneven. Yeah. Again, it wasn't until late that they really switched this on. I think the combination of not really getting much, if anything, going on the ground with Will Hammond getting the start, it felt like they were very arrhythmic. It felt like Arizona State had a good game plan to try and minimize.
The Eurythmics, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It just felt like Arizona State had a really good game plan for what they expected Texas Tech was going to try and do on offense. And, came on late, but ultimately weren't able to get the job done. It was Arizona State winning this one at home, getting a big dub.
It was, by the way, that play, I think it was Sam Levitt rolling out to the right on 4th and 2. Yes. Jordan Tyson sort of improvising, going down the sideline for a big gain on, again, you mentioned one leg. But yeah, it was Sam Levitt, just the plays that he made throwing the ball downfield. I know I make these baseball allusions all the time, right? But it looked like a right fielder in the corner, just throwing everything he had into a throw to get it home, throwing internal organs around to get it downfield. And it worked. There is something gutty, and there is something that you see sort of Kenny Dillingham's personality shining through with this team.
You really do. You really do.
I don't think it changes much for the Big 12 and for Texas Tech. I know it's going to affect tiebreakers now, right? It's that Utah destroys Texas Tech late. Texas Tech destroys Utah late. Utah destroys Arizona State, albeit without Sam Levitt. And now ASU beats Texas Tech. So we always knew this was going to be a sort of mess at the top because there aren't enough quality teams in the Big 12. We'll see what happens. Obviously, we had Holy War tonight as well, which will affect things. But I think Texas Tech is in, depending on Baron Morton's health moving forward, which is perennial career question for Baron Morton and Texas Tech. I think Texas Tech is still a pace. I never thought they were going to go 12-0. I don't think Texas Tech fans really anticipated them going undefeated throughout the season, even though hopes, obviously were raised and expectations were raised these first few games. I don't think it changes much. Texas Tech at full quality, and if they're calling a good game, can beat a lot of teams in this country.
100%. And this is a really nice win for Arizona State. ASU has, I think, fallen off a little bit just in terms of the national conversation because of some of the losses and some of the games they've played here in the early going. But
just win.
Yeah, you win a game like this, you get back on the radar, back in the conversation pretty quickly. Where do you want to go next?
Let's go LSU Vanderbilt. If that's okay with you.
Look, we both called this one.
Did you have LSU winning though?
No, we both said that Vandy was a better team.
Vandy outright at home. Okay, continue.
And it still feels weird, doesn't it?
Not if you watch Vandy play, man.
I know, but it still feels weird to me. It still feels weird.
Okay.
Much like Indiana still feels weird for a lot of people. Vandy still feels weird to me. It feels weird to be having this conversation about Vandy, especially when they're playing against a team like an LSU. Vandy wins 31-24. Our read again, when we did the preview on Thursday, was Vandy's the better team right now.
Yeah.
Lo and behold, Vandy was the better team on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
What I found most interesting about this game, sort of separate from the nuts and bolts and the stats that maybe we can get into if we want to, this game to me was the perfect example of how Vandy wants to play football.
Certainly.
This was their blueprint executed to a T. And we've talked about it, and I know I keep talking about this bonus episode that we did probably a month ago now, where we did a deep dive of everything that Vandy does offensively and how it all works together. That's at our Patreon at forballers.com.
Good plug. Solid.
I'm not trying to sell anybody on anything, but it's interesting to me that we saw this play out the way that we did. The blueprint is very simple for Vandy. They want to dominate time of possession. They want to limit how many drives an opponent can get. And they basically want to force everybody, themselves included, to be super efficient.
Yep.
If you want to win, you got to be super efficient. You can beat Vandy, but you just got to be buttoned up. LSU only got 8 drives in this game. For context, they've been averaging a little over 11 drives per game. Now, that may not sound like a lot, But again, that's 3 fewer bites at the apple if you're LSU. And by the way, this is an LSU team that has struggled for the vast majority of the season on offense.
Right.
So Vandy did what Vandy does, and they forced LSU to be better. And LSU had some nice moments in this game, but Vandy ends up rushing for 239 yards. Vandy controls time of possession. I just mentioned how Vandy limited how many opposing possessions they surrendered. They also scored 31 points because they were efficient in their own right when they had the ball. That's the most anybody has scored on the LSU defense so far this season.
Yes.
And it's kind of not even close. So again, they had a plan. They have a very strong sense of self. They have an identity. And this is the value of having that identity. If you have it, if you can execute it, if you can sort of live by that credo, you can do what Vandy's doing. Kudos to them, man. This is a big friggin' win. At home.
Yes.
Good for Clarkley.
By the way, you mentioned that it's the most points that LSU has allowed this season. It's the most points LSU has scored against a power conference opponent this year. 24. So there's that. Look, LSU struggled. You mentioned you can't donate to Vanderbilt if you're going to beat Vandy. And there were too many donations. And, you know, as talented as LSU looks like they can be at times, they'll get 1 or 2 long runs here or there, but they're never controlling the game with their offense. And when you see that 10 or you see that 8 or that 14 next to their name, that's why people have been skeptical of this LSU team, because there's only so much you can do with a defense and a hopeful offense rather than an established offense. And you'll get those, you know, once a season type performances or type play. Like it was Xavier Thomas, who somehow ran through 7 different Vandy players on a broken play.
That was an incredible
It was
play.
an unreal individual effort. Unreal.
Incredible.
But LSU needs that to win big or sizable games, and it's just impossible to count on. And I feel bad for Garrett Nussmeier, and the way that I felt bad for, you know, LSU has this weird way of producing these quarterbacks or developing these quarterbacks, good, bad, somewhere in between. So you go back to Max Johnson, you go back to even Jaden Daniels. Like, they get their quarterbacks abused at LSU. And even when they succeed, they get hit. Garrett Nussmeier was hit by Vandy a ton in this one. And so, I don't know, man. You talk about the Vandy blueprint. It's still sort of like, let Diago Pavia figure it out. And sometimes
Diago. Yes.
And sometimes it works famously with his legs, with his improvising, the huge screen at the end of the game across the field. He makes clutch throws. He somehow has a nose for the first down marker, nose for the end zone, nose for big plays. They're not bombing the ball downfield.
No.
That's not a part of this offense.
No.
They're just consistently finding ways to elongate these drives. And it's damn impressive. It really is.
I mean, I think Clark Lee, to that point, deserves a lot of credit because upon bringing Diago Pavia over, they did sort of build around him. You know, they have been very good at highlighting what he is good at. And as such, they have kind of developed this philosophy that has been working very well now over the last 2 years. I'm very curious to see where Vandy ends up in the latest round of polling because LSU, love him or hate him, was a top 10 team. Vandy was number 17 in the AP poll. It would not surprise me one bit if we see Vandy take a gigantic leap. I don't think they're going to get all the way up into the top 10, but if we're having this conversation on Tuesday and Vandy's like number 12 in the country, I don't think anybody should be surprised by that. I'm curious to see where our Verballer poll ranks Vandy. You know, there's a lot of Vandy diehards out there in the Verballerhood,
of course,
people who are just fascinated with this story, which will probably give them a little bit more of a boost. But this is a legitimate team. They're very, very solid. You know, they might not knock you over with explosiveness, with playmakers, with anything, but they play really well as a team. They have a very strong identity, and they're just good at doing what they do.
So they have left the most fascinating schedule. Vandy has a Mizzou
I'm glad you're bringing
team.
this up. I'm glad you're bringing this up.
A Mizzou team, who knows?
Yep.
Who knows after Mizzou's overtime win against Auburn tonight? They've got a Texas team on the road. Who knows after Texas's overtime win against Kentucky? They have an Auburn team, elite loser. Let's just be clear. Auburn is a bloodhound for losses. They will sniff out a loss no matter how much you think it's buried in the forest, in the jungle, in the Sahara. They have that nose.
They are elite losers.
They're elite losers.
I don't know how they keep doing it.
They have Kentucky, and they finish on the road at Tennessee. What a fascinating schedule. It's great. Did I say Diago? Is that
You said Diago, yeah.
Maybe I've seen Anchorman so many times with San Diego. I was just worked up. I don't know what to tell you.
You mentioned Tennessee. Let's talk about the Bama-Tennessee game.
Sure.
Bama wins this one going away. I was wrong. I had it in my head that Tennessee was going to pull the outright upset. For a while, I was thinking they might cover. But alas, this was Alabama doing what Alabama does. Speaking of the pixie dust that I mentioned a little bit ago with Georgia, and speaking of what I just talked about with Vandy, having a pretty strong identity, knowing what you are, I think they're becoming acquainted with what they aren't. Certainly, they're not much of a rushing team, but they have been crazy efficient and crazy productive and just a damn hard out when it comes to Ty Simpson. Putting the ball in his hands, distributing it out to their playmakers against everybody that they have played so far. It is a really, really difficult ask to try and cover those guys. I still, for the life of me, don't understand the Florida State thing. Okay, but that was
week one, man.
And week one is like not of this earth. It's always a little bit wonky. They have graduated past that. I think the version of Alabama that we see now, look, Tennessee didn't play a bad game, in my opinion.
Sure.
They didn't win. They clearly could have done some stuff better. But the thought that kept bouncing around in my head is, Alabama is just a more perfectly evolved version of Tennessee. Like, you know how when you watch Shark Week, I know you're a big shark guy, right?
Of course.
When you watch Shark Week, they talk often about how sharks are perfectly evolved over the course of like millions of years.
Yeah. I'm an orca guy myself, but continue.
Right. Sharks and orcas inextricably linked, of course.
Of course.
But Bama's not reached that shark level of evolution, but it just feels to me like each time I watch Ty Simpson, he gets a little bit better and a little bit more confident. And I think that's a really dangerous thing for the other teams in the SEC.
Also dangerous, throwing the ball to Zabian Brown right before the half in an opportunity to score before the half and have it be returned 99 yards the other way. That changes calculus. And I'll push back a little bit. I know Jam Miller, and it was good to have him back. He didn't do anything. But coming back he was concussed last week, or concussion type symptoms. Alabama was creative in trying to figure out the run at times, utilizing, Jeremy Bernard, I think Ryan Williams had an end around.
Yep.
Daniel Hill had some action, and Ty Simpson had some gutty runs. They're not incompetent. It's just not part of their strength. It's not part of their repertoire right now. And so we saw that a little bit with Kalen DeBoer when he took Washington to the national championship game. Yep. And that team evolved. They ran better as the season evolved. And so I sort of anticipate some of that with Alabama moving forward. But great win. Obviously, we got to see the Stogies get lit up at the end.
I saw that. That was pretty neat. I mean, not if you're a Tennessee fan.
Not if you're a Tennessee fan.
Not if you're a Tennessee fan, but that's one of the cool things, one of the cool traditions of college
Smoke
football.
them if you got them. And there definitely is something more confident, more decisive about where Ty Simpson is now compared to even a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I think it's legit. And I think Tennessee's legit too. Like, they ran the ball pretty well with Deshaun Bishop.
Oh, they definitely did.
Joey Aguilar is not a perfect quarterback, but he's a very good quarterback. And I thought, for the most part, with the exception of that back-breaking pick that he threw, mostly a pretty good game. A good game for Braylon Stanley as well. Had 10 catches on the Tennessee side. Like, it's still a very good Tennessee team that can control the line of scrimmage with its defense. Can.
It has not been like.
Can.
I don't think you can watch this Tennessee team and come away saying like they can. Like, it happens, but I'm not sure that this is something you want to include in the table of contents when you look at the bibliography of Tennessee season. that this is a team that has the ability to defend when it's been a struggle kind of more often than not.
Let me say this.
Yeah.
You bring up a valid point. I thought they could.
Okay, fair.
All right. I thought they could. But Alabama scored 37 points. Arkansas a week ago scored 31 points. Mississippi State scored 34 points. Georgia scored 44 points. They have given up a lot of points, this defense. And to that end, I would say you're right. To that end, they have definitely underwhelmed. I expected the defense to be a little bit more of a strength. I still believe that they can improve, and I still believe they've got enough talent to be good the rest of the way. Speaking of like really fascinating schedules for Tennessee, I mean, they've got 2 losses now, but on the road at Kentucky next week. They've got a game against Oklahoma at home. They've got New Mexico State, which should be a win. They're on the road at Florida. They've got the rivalry game against Vandy at home to close out the year. I could come up with about 1,000 different ways that those remaining games could go for Tennessee. And so I think they're going to be one of the more interesting teams to watch in the SEC now moving forward. It's a good team. Be interesting to see how they play against the remainder of that schedule.
Agree. Where do you want to go? You want to do USC Notre Dame? We can do whatever you want. Come on, Ty.
Let's do USC Notre Dame. Let's do USC Notre Dame.
Okay.
Holy hell.
Okay. Next game.
How much of this did you watch?
Pretty much the entire thing. I'm watching like 6 games at a time when you have the schedule that we had tonight, right? I have Mizzou Auburn going. I have Holy War going. I have Tennessee Bama going. I watched, the first half-ish of Oregon Rutgers. That got out of control very quickly. Speaking of Anchorman, right? It escalated very quickly.
It did.
I was watching 6 to 11 games at any given time, just cycling through the quad box and then through the main screen. So I watched a good amount of this.
CJ Carr was not good for Notre Dame. He was not.
In the rain.
I mean, the rain picked up the deeper this game went. He seemed pretty keyed up early, was not accurate making his throws. I can imagine if you are out there tuning in for this game, maybe you're a USC fan, maybe you're just a college football fan who appreciates a good rivalry. Hearing all of this hubbub about CJ Carr and watching this version of CJ Carr and sort of shrugging like, that's it. That's right. That's what we're getting. This was about the worst we've seen of CJ Carr. I don't know if it was quite on the same level as the Miami game earlier in the year or not, but this was not a good showing for him. Where Notre Dame really earned its keep was on the ground. Between Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price, 44 carries, 306 yards, 7 yards per carry, and 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
So it was Jeremiah Love leading the way at 228 on the ground. He got the majority of the work. Jadarian Price at 87. Jadarian Price also had a long kickoff return for a touchdown that sort of gave the momentum back to Notre Dame after USC appeared as if they were going to start taking the lead and maybe distancing themselves a little bit. So I thought this was a clunker masquerading as a bit of a shootout, is what I said to you. Because even though there were elements of Notre Dame's offense that were really effective, USC was able to move the ball pretty well on them. USC's offense is still a real deal. They were able to move the ball pretty well on them. I thought pretty much everybody outside of Leonard Moore in the secondary had a really hard time keeping up with those USC wide receivers. Jacoby Lane had a really good game, 6 for 111. Even Mekhi Lemon got in on the action. Had one long run where he kind of got some separation from Leonard Moore, who was on him most of the game. But to me, this brought up a real question about the Notre Dame defense against better offenses. This might be the best they play all year. I don't know where it goes from here.
Right.
So maybe this is an extreme example.
We'll see what happens with Stanford, Florida State. Continue.
See what happens with the dreaded Cardinal. But, I thought this was a really interesting test for this defense. And they were probably aided by the fact there was some weather. to tamp
Sure.
things down. They definitely were able to confuse Jade Mayava, put him in some interesting situations where he had to make throws that I don't think he would have normally make. So I thought, as a Notre Dame fan, my takeaway was, first off, phew, that could have gone a different direction. Secondly, I come away happy that they won, but at the same time feeling like this was a little bit of an uneven performance. There were too many penalties. They gave up too much defensively against a really good offense. CJ Carr in a big game, like this does beg the question, bigger games moving forward. Is he going to be this keyed up? Is he going to get better? I sense he will, but this was just not a great showing for him. And ultimately, you want the win. You win your clunker. That's why I'm wearing win your clunker. I believe that. This was kind of a clunker. It just didn't look like it if you looked at the final scoreboard. So a nice win for sure. And I thought USC acquitted itself really well, all things considered. But this was, I feel that, Dan. I really do.
That's okay.
I came away feeling pretty impressed by USC. But ultimately, what impressed me the most and what impressed everybody the most was 300 yards on the ground for Notre Dame.
Did asking your star receiver to throw a pass in pouring rain and have him fumble the ball impress you?
No, I'm not talking about the coaching.
Okay.
I am almost like separating out the coaching decisions from the performances we saw out there. Like Jaden Mayava is not a perfect quarterback, but Jaden Mayava is pretty good. Most teams across college football.
I think he's legit. I think
he's very, very good.
He's not a perfect quarterback. He forced throws. The play calling was kind of all over the place for USC. Couldn't really run the ball consistently. Now, obviously, USC is down, I think, 2 starting offensive linemen. They're starting left tackle and center. They're down their first 2 running backs in Wayman Jordan and Eli Sanders. And obviously, King Miller was very good. Was it Brian Jackson who stepped in as well? Yeah. They have good players. The best of Mekhi Lemon and Jacoby Lane is excellent. Lake McCree had a great touchdown catch. I don't know if you thought his toe was down. It looked like it was down to me early on.
They just sort of panned it.
They went through it and they just
like, his toe was down.
Yeah.
Okay. Like it was close, right? It was at least close, and everybody just sort of like went with it. Okay.
There were definitely moments where CJ Carr looked like a 7-5 quarterback. There were definitely moments where Notre Dame needed to get lucky to move beyond terrible kicking. It definitely looked like moments where Notre Dame desperately needed Jadarian Price to return that kickoff for a touchdown because the offense was sort of all over the place. I wouldn't go as far as saying winning your clunkers, because when you have a running back just explode through a defense like Jeremiah Love did, you're not cobbling together a win with duct tape and chicken wire.
No, listen.
So
the ground game was there for them all day.
Yeah.
All day. And they were the dominant team in the trenches.
Yeah.
Okay. So this could just be me catastrophizing a little bit.
Yeah.
As somebody who follows this team and is always terrified of this football game. I'll admit it.
Yeah.
Okay. I talked about it on the preview episodes. You know how I feel about this USC rivalry. USC always gives Notre Dame a game. It's always going to be a tight game for as long as they play the rivalry.
Yeah.
They had it on the ground. They obviously took advantage of that.
Made plays on defense.
They did make plays on defense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Notre Dame speed up just like USC is. Yeah.
There were also other elements of the defense that definitely left me a bit underwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, despite the fact that Christian Gray got like 5 pass interference calls in this game or whatever the hell it was, he did come away with 2 interceptions.
Yeah. Or 2 picks. Yeah.
So it's sort of, as I say, it's a little bit uneven to me how I feel coming out of this win. But ultimately, you will take it. Because what I think we're going to find on the USC front moving forward, Notre Dame doesn't have a whole lot left on their schedule.
Yeah.
But USC has a road game against Nebraska coming up.
Oh, man.
They've got a road game against Oregon coming up. They close out the year against the behemoth that is the UCLA Bruins. Right?
Where's that game being played? Obviously, it's in Los Angeles, but whose stadium?
I don't have it here.
Okay, I'll look it up while you're talking.
You can look it up. But my point is that just because USC loses a game like this, we should not count them out. We should not count them out. I don't know what the upward mobility looks like at this point. I don't know what they're going to end up ranked, but I think this is a damn good team. They've only got 2 losses now, and they've got a schedule in front of them that puts them in some interesting situations.
Yeah.
I'm not overly confident about that Oregon game, second to last game of the year, but I think they've got the offense to go toe-to-toe with just about anybody. And when you've got that, almost anything can happen. So I came away very impressed with USC, not always with the coaching.
Yeah.
I came away impressed with how Notre Dame used its ground game to its advantage, though there were other aspects of their overall play that definitely left me a bit down.
Remember, you cannot count USC out until they arrive at LAX to check in. At that point.
Okay.
Hold on. How they been on the road under Lincoln Riley?
I get it.
How they been?
I get it.
Okay. Just making sure.
I get
Wait
it.
until they get to LAX. Wait until they buy some peanut M&Ms. Not a sponsor, could be. In the Hudson News.
I get it.
Then you count them out. Continue.
Let's talk about the Georgia Tech Duke game.
Okay.
We've gone this deep into the episode without mentioning a damn thing about the ACC.
No, we mentioned Miami.
Well, I guess we mentioned Miami Louisville.
Yeah.
But what I mean is where the ACC goes next.
Real right? ACC teams.
The rest of the ACC.
Yeah.
Okay. The Georgia Tech Duke game was very quietly one of the biggest games of Week 8.
Agree.
It did not get top billing because there were so many other bigger matchups that were out there. I was fascinated by this matchup coming into it. We both looked at the point spread. Duke was favored by 3. I believe we both took Duke. Did we not?
I know I did. You
did.
may have been Georgia Tech leaning, and I brought you to the wrong side of the aisle.
I don't know. I mean, Georgia Tech won this one 27-18.
Yes.
And I thought that several things were true at once. The first was that Georgia Tech, to me, looked fairly balanced on offense. They were very aggressive on defense, but fairly balanced on offense. And by that, I mean that they kept using Haynes King like they always do, and Duke didn't really have an answer for him, especially on the ground. Georgia Tech was very good at using their best player. On the flip side of things, Duke also kind of beat itself, right? They gave up a 95-yard scoop and score early. They botched a hold on a field goal. I saw the stat somewhere that they held a 238 to 110-yard advantage in the first half. This was a game that actually was there for Duke, and they kept shooting themselves in the foot. They were not able to convert. This is not to say they would have won if all of those things went in their direction, but this is to say that Duke is better than maybe this final score would indicate, and is definitely going to be a hard out for the remainder of their schedule. But ultimately, a very nice win for Georgia Tech. You know, I think you and I are both of the mind that Tech's probably got another L in them somewhere along the way.
Maybe. Yeah.
But
this would have been one I considered to be pretty dangerous.
But, you know, they keep finding ways to scrap it together. They keep finding ways to get these wins. They're not always pretty, but what's your big rule about being pretty in football?
I don't know. I have so many rules. What is it?
Well, you don't got to be pretty. You just need it to work.
You just need it to work.
So Georgia Tech now 7-0, 4-0 in the ACC. On the Tuesday episode, maybe we can talk through a little bit more about what their path looks like moving forward. I mean, I got it in front of me. It's Syracuse, NC State, Boston College, and Pitt before the rivalry against Georgia to close out the year. So it's very much there for Georgia Tech. The other thing that I'll mention on the Duke side.
Oh, yeah.
Darian Mensah, 373 in a losing effort, Dan.
Cooper Barkate, Harvard transfer. Also nearly 200 yards receiving for Duke here. No, the actual takeaway was this is more of the better of Georgia Tech that we've seen this year, right? Haynes King is balanced, on the ground through the air. He was very efficient through the air, ran really well, had a ton of open lanes. The Georgia Tech defense, even though they gave up the yardage that they did, it was sort of a terrific study in bend but don't break. They got off the field. They forced field goals. They allowed 10 points, I think, until like the very end of this game. And so that's a really nice step forward when you consider where Georgia Tech was last year, a couple of years ago, that against this type of offense that they'll give up some grass, but they didn't give up the points here. And it's an extremely positive step, especially considering they replaced their defensive coordinator in the offseason. Really nice step forward for the Georgia Tech defense in a dangerous spot on the road.
And let's finish off this segment with the Holy War, Dan.
Please.
BYU wins 24-21. You and I talked about this one a little bit before we hit go tonight. And look, Utah moved the ball on BYU. Utah had its opportunities, but 1 out of 5 on fourth down conversions. Utah got some really big stops when they needed them most, and that was ultimately what helped spring them to victory. It wasn't just that. They didn't have as many turnovers. They didn't have nearly as many penalties. I compared it when you and I spoke about BYU hitting irons off the tee. Just hit the center of the fairway, hit the green, take your par, and move to the next hole.
Yeah.
There is nothing super flashy about BYU. But again, they kind of know what they are.
Yeah.
And their whole ethos is built around doing whatever they need to do to win. If you're looking at BYU trying to figure out, are they an air raid team? Are they a spread team? They're like the most multiple of multiple teams out there. They will do whatever they have to. It doesn't look sexy. It rarely, if ever, looks sexy. But a game like this, I think, is testament to what Kalani Sitake has built at BYU. And you can't really look at the box score and try to get an understanding for what BYU is supposed to be, because the box score is going to deceive you. They just sort of are this team that finds a way to get it done. They will do whatever it takes, and they kind of don't care how it looks.
I agree. And it was another situation similar to, maybe not on that kind of stage nationally, just because the Holy War is an emotional stage within the Big 12, but doesn't get the national attention of a game like, Georgia, Ole Miss necessarily. BYU finished strong. LJ Martin ran really well in that fourth quarter. They were buttoned up, where if you're going to sort of look at where Utah had opportunities and where they weren't able to take advantage, they were driving deep into BYU territory. They just were stopped on fourth down. If you want to say anything, BYU just got off. They were the kings of getting off. I know that's your phrase.
Yeah.
But
sure.
I guess it's appropriate here for BYU, right? It's bend but don't break again. We talk about it with Georgia Tech and Duke. But BYU did a really nice job situationally. Utah was just sloppier in a big emotional spot on the road, and BYU got it done. It was great.
It really was. And this, to me, and I'm sure I'm going to get a little bit of pushback on this one, but this was the second straight big game in which I saw Devin Dampier, and I sent you a message saying, yeah, he looks like a New Mexico quarterback.
There are times where he definitely looks like
a mid-tier Mountain West quarterback.
Yeah.
I'm still not impressed with Devin Dampier.
Well,
I'm just not.
On
the ground, he's all right, but just the totality of the Devin Dampier experience to me is very underwhelming.
Was he one of those quarterbacks that before the season you were like, I watched an hour and a half of cutoffs?
No.
That was just Mark Gronowski.
That was Mark Gronowski, who, by the way, ran for like 150 yards in a win against Penn State. But
that's true. Don't look at his throwing numbers, his passes. But
it's late. I don't want to put people to sleep more than they are already.
Maybe.
But there is something about the Devin Dampier experience to me that is, like I said, I'm not into it. Devin Dampier was our friend Tim Murray's guy. He was all in on Devin Dampier as like a dark horse Heisman contender. I maybe a bit premature based on what I've seen so far.
I think he was just talking about value.
No. Yeah. I get it.
Value.
Listen.
And look, we're a week removed from Utah absolutely demolishing Arizona State, who's now the belle of the Big 12 ball. I don't know. We can still put some respect on Utah's name.
We can. I'm just underwhelmed. I don't know.
Okay.
Underwhelmed is the word that I keep coming back to.
Fair enough.
With the Utah Utes. Give me some other.
Stated, by the way.
What's that?
31-13 Oregon State, time of recording.
Give me some other quick hits, things around college football that jumped out to you as sort of like an honorable mention here before we get to reverb.
Honorable mention. Nebraska got shelled by Minnesota. That was Friday night as well, right?
That was a Friday night game, yeah.
Amid, I guess, Matt Rule conversations, and he goes on Pat McAfee to discuss the Penn State job. Here are the facts.
We did get a lefty throw, by the way. Do you remember we talked about that?
We got a lefty throw. That was you.
Yeah.
We got a lefty throw, and we also got a Dylan Raiola, dive forward, flip it to a receiver. Successful. The receiver got hit hard. The combination of Nebraska's offensive line, Minnesota's pass rush, which hasn't really been much this year, and Dylan Raiola finding himself sort of in a fun house behind the offensive line, and when he has to step into the pocket and navigate the pocket, it was a nightmare for Nebraska in Minneapolis. Their second straight road game, they sneak by Maryland the week before. They looked lost. They looked uninspired. Dylan Raiola could not find open receivers. Maybe they weren't there. I don't put it all on the offensive line. I put a chunk of it on the offensive line, of course.
I mean, he was sacked 9 times. So some of that
nine times, which is a lot of times.
That's a lot of times.
He did hold on to the ball a long time at times.
Some of that blame does go to the offensive line, which, by the way, they had one offensive lineman who had to go to the hospital. And then they had another ejected for targeting, which you don't see at every game.
You don't see a lot of left tackles.
You don't see that.
Targeting.
But alas.
But here we are. And it's a long season. Nebraska has time to redeem itself. That's a tough one, too. Traveling to Maryland again. I mean, it's a pretty good defense at Maryland. And taking on Minnesota, short week. But, man, Nebraska's offense. Woof.
The comment that I made to you is that Dylan Raiola is playing like a guy who wants to get drafted by Dude Perfect.
Yeah.
That's the kind of game that Dylan Raiola plays. Obviously very talented.
Yeah.
But I feel like somewhere lost amid all of the trick shot highlights is the fact that either he doesn't have time to throw down the field, or the offense, the Dana Holgorsen offense, is not either scheming receivers open or even asking him to throw that much down the field. It's a lot of short stuff,
which is all
fine, and that's fine. That can be fine,
right? But even okay, continue. Sorry,
I like him a lot more than you do, and that's always been the case.
Correct.
And I think he is in a situation right now, certainly with this offensive line, that is going to skew things one way or the other against him. All right, people will see Dylan Raiola, and they will feel on some level underwhelmed when he goes up against the team that's able to take advantage of that line.
Yeah.
I still think he's got a ton of talent. I still think he's going to end up being very good.
Buddy, Northampton High School could take advantage of the Nebraska offensive line.
But it is games like this that do make me wonder if this is more about highlights with Dylan Raiola versus the total package.
Sure. Look, it's not all on him. It's not all on the offensive line. It's not on Dana Holgorsen. It's not on receiver. It's a combination. It's a cocktail of offensive incompetence. And I guess that's who Penn State wants as their head coach. Okay. So
that's a separate conversation.
On the other side of the field, though, because I couldn't help but sort of, one, Darius Taylor was very good, had a long run early on. Good to see him healthier. Drake Lindsey, the Minnesota offensive line wasn't incredible, but he was quick. The offense was called for him to take a couple of steps and throw it. The offense was called for quick stuff, get the ball out of his hands, make plays, keep the chains moving. And it just seemed like there is a communication issue with Nebraska in their attempts to do that. And I do chuckle when you allude to the fact that you think Dylan Raiola's destiny, he was born to throw a football off the top of the Burj Khalifa.
I mean, that could be it. That could be the
I would watch it, to be clear. I would.
Yeah. I would. But
by the way, sidebar,
it is games like this that make me wonder if he's cut out more for YouTube than the NFL.
Do you? I mean, I've watched a lot of Texas A&M football this season, and I guess you have too, because they played Notre Dame and a couple of other big games. Dude Perfect is prominently featured in Texas A&M as an academic institution.
I know
they're commercials.
I know they are.
I don't know. Weird decision to make, but
130th in air yards per target.
Okay,
for those of you playing along at home.
Again,
anyway,
that's okay, but you gotta make it work.
Got to make it work. Yeah. What else? We want to talk about Texas going OT against Kentucky?
I don't think so. Okay. I didn't watch a ton of this game, so I'm not going to front for the Verballers and pretend like I did. I watched the end of this game because it seemed closer than it should have been, and I came away very unimpressed. I will watch this game either tomorrow or Monday morning, and I will have additional thoughts. but when you show me a 7-7, Arch Manning doesn't seem to be completing passes intermediate or downfield against Kentucky, and they need to kick a field goal to win. It's going to lose my attention.
They rushed for 47 yards.
Yeah.
And it's been sort of a continuing trend of them just, at times they have run the ball okay, but it has not been a consistent rushing offense. You recall last year they used that rushing offense to great effect down the stretch, especially.
Yeah.
We haven't seen that with any real consistency. And again, I'm not trying to pile on Arch Manning. Arch doesn't look good. He makes a couple really good throws per game.
Sure.
That is undeniable. And you can see that he's got those tools. That part is exciting. But more often than not, it is snap the ball, run around a little bit behind the line, and you don't get the sense he knows where to go with the ball.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, this could end up being a gigantic whiff when we do the postmortem on this season with where things are at with Arch Manning. And look, he's just kind of growing into being a full-time starter, I guess, despite the fact that he's been in the program for a few years. But I don't know, man. It's getting late early here, and I'm still waiting for that significant moment where we're all going to be really impressed by Arch. And I'm just a 12 of 27, 4.9.
Sure. Maybe extenuating circumstances. I'm going to watch this game closely, and I'll come to my conclusion then.
I tell you what, this is, I don't necessarily swear by the QBRs, but the QBR for Arch was 24.0. You're going to watch this game, you're going to message me tomorrow, and you're going to say, yeah, that's what I imagined a 24.0 is going to look like.
Yeah. If your QBR is fewer digits than Ty's age in his mid-40s, there's work to be done. Another game that I can't wait to watch more of, I watched some of, and every time I turned it on, there were fireworks, and it was like watching two amazing NBA three-point shooters bomb it from 29 feet. Texas A&M, Arkansas.
Oh, yeah.
How does a team lose a game at home averaging 9 yards per carry? Great question. Can't wait to learn more, because every time I flipped to this or looked up at it in a quad box, we're recording this Saturday night, somebody was ripping off a 17-yard game on either side of the field. And so it was a terrific shootout. I think the final score was 45-42. Marcel Reed and Taylon Green put on an absolute show. Every time I looked up, it didn't seem like there was a ton of tackling. It didn't seem like there was a ton of defense. Good for A&M. We talked about this, that I think you felt pretty good about A&M, and then we both decided.
No, I liked Arkansas plus the points.
Oh, you liked Arkansas plus the points. Yeah. Okay. I remember deciding that it's insane that anybody's going to win this game in a sane way, because nobody ever does in this matchup. Now, especially we'll see now that it's away from Jerry World, but this one looks like it was a lot of fun every time I looked up.
For sure. The other one that, and I don't want to make this all about the SEC, but you did mention the Auburn-Mizzou game.
Woo!
I mean, I don't know how many times Auburn's going to lose a close game before they just decide they got to get rid of Hugh Freeze.
All of the times. That's how
they just keep getting in close games and losing them.
Yeah.
And I think the schedule lightens up a little bit the second half, but it's still not easy by any stretch. And it certainly is not made easier by the fact that they find ways to just get into these close games. They're good enough to be close enough, but they're not good enough to close. And It's got to be damn frustrating if you're an Auburn Tigers fan right now. Like, they were, I thought, the vast majority of that game against Mizzou, the better team.
One of the best interceptions of the day at the end. Yeah.
Yeah. And they had plenty of opportunities in the passing game. I don't think the box score is going to be truly reflective of the day that Jackson Arnold had. I thought Jackson Arnold actually looked pretty good.
Made plays.
He did.
Or tried to make plays that other people let him down.
Yes.
During. Yeah.
And he should have had better numbers, because he had, like, just one example was Cam Coleman down the left sideline, dropped an absolute dime. I mean, this was in the bucket, and he just dropped it. Yeah. You know, it might have gone for like a 60-yard touchdown. I don't recall exactly how far it was, but plays like that, I thought Jackson Arnold had a pretty good command of the offense and what he was trying to do. But again, they find a way to stall out. It was not a great showing, in my estimation, on the Mizzou side. But more to the point, wearing the clunker shirt. Auburn, I think, is still generally a pretty good team, even if the record doesn't reflect it. And even if they can't close, they're still a team that can be a pain in the ass and beat you if you're not on your game. And Mizzou found a way to get it done.
Agree. It was just a very exciting, newsworthy day in the SEC. Florida won late, and Oklahoma. Oklahoma's good.
Oklahoma just sat on South Carolina is kind of what happened.
Here was what Oklahoma came in as one of the worst rushing teams. They ran really well against South Carolina. I think it was Torrey Blaylock who led the way for Oklahoma on the ground. So that's a positive development for the Sooners. South Carolina, I mean, take your pick of the teams thrilled with other teams for having terrible offensive lines. And so they're all sort of helping each other out. I feel bad for Lenora Sellers. Like, I just watch him. I'm like, poor, like, guy's just going to be in a cold tub all week. Yeah. They're cooked. I don't know. Really nice bounce back for Oklahoma on the road in a tough place to play and get the W.
We're going to need to go through at some point and do a much deeper dive of what's going on in the Big 12, because I think there's just like a million possible scenarios for where that conference could go. The two games that I wanted to call out real quick, and then we're going to get to your reverbs.
Yes.
And we're going to bring this thing home. The Michigan-Washington game was one that was very interesting to me. And I think I was a little bit higher on Washington coming in because I was higher on Washington when we did previews. But this was a defensive display for Michigan. Like, the offense wasn't always outstanding, but I thought what they did defensively against an offense that I thought was pretty good.
Yeah.
That to me was the most impressive thing that I saw come out of this matchup.
I tried to explain to you Washington doesn't win these games. I just tried. They don't win Big Ten road games.
I know. But, like, I just expected more. I like Damon Williams. Damon Williams throws 3 interceptions, right?
And he couldn't do anything on the ground. Michigan did a really nice job.
Couldn't do anything.
Corralling the run game. Yeah.
On the ground. Jordan Marshall had a really nice day for Michigan on the ground. Bryce Underwood, again, like, super efficient, 21 of 27, 230, 2 touchdowns.
And that was without his 2 tight ends, right?
Without his 2 tight ends,
yeah,
right?
So they had backups there. Yeah.
I just thought this was a very workmanlike effort from Michigan, even if there are definitely some things that offensively I felt they could have done a little bit better. This was a pretty good game for them. I came away feeling like Michigan is still very formidable and not to be overlooked the remainder of this Big Ten season.
I think they're fine. I think we're a week removed from them getting absolutely stomped by a walk-on running back at USC. And USC's offense is fine. I don't think Washington is all that impressive on the road. I don't think there are a lot of ways for Washington to win. I think their defense is okay, but they don't have a ton of talent up the middle. And Michigan played at home. They have a good running game. They have a promising, talented quarterback, and they should have won that game, and they did. And so good for Michigan. I think Michigan's still pretty raw and makes weird decisions, and Washington can be fun, but there's just not enough killers on this roster at this point. And Jed Fish doesn't win this game at Washington.
My final honorable mention, then we're going to play your Week 8 reverbs. SMU beat Clemson 35-24.
Yes, Chris Vizina game. Yeah.
Yeah, Chris Vizina game. Kate Klubnik was out. This was a rematch of the ACC title game from a year ago. It was a noticeable difference, I would say. Clemson could not run the ball. They had 30 carries, 35 yards as a team. So that put even more stress on Vizina. Jordan Hudson, your guy.
Yep.
Really good for SMU in this matchup. Kevin Jennings certainly not perfect, but Kevin Jennings did enough to get the win for the Mustangs. So this is a really nice win for them, even if Clemson is sort of down and out. They're 3-4 now. But I think just in terms of symbolic wins for the SMU program, avenging that loss in the ACC title game from a year ago, that was a very winnable game for them a year ago. But avenging that loss, going on the road and getting the win at Memorial Stadium was pretty cool.
Just a couple real quick before the reverbs, Ty. I promise I'm going to be quick. Ohio State just sort of stomped Wisconsin. Not a huge surprise there, but Julian Sayin is very quietly extremely efficient. Wisconsin has a pretty good defense. They have playmakers, and Ohio State just threw over, around, whatever. They're just a crazy efficient performance from Ohio State, as most shutouts are. Indiana was awesome against Michigan State. A little bit of a slow start, but it was a complete performance. Mendoza was great, and as soon as there was a tiny bit of momentum for Indiana, it was just done. It was done for the Hoosiers. Super impressive from Indiana. UConn beat Boston College, which
man, I was close to locking up UConn, and that's the God's honest truth.
TCU beats Baylor in that rivalry game and sort of was in control, but Baylor did a nice job storming back late. But a nice balanced performance from TCU. Noah Fafita was awesome. Connor Wigman was also awesome in that early game, and good for Houston for coming out on top. Arizona stormed back to try to make it something, but Houston held on. Good for them. Tulane, nice job beating Army in sort of an ugly starting game, but a rematch of the American Championship from last year. UCF runs away from West Virginia, quietly gets their first Big 12 win under Scott Frost once again. And I think that's, I was trying to convince you Boise State would score a ton of points against UNLV, and they did. They
Boise
very much did.
The absolute crap out of UNLV in that game. Everybody tried to warn me.
Alonzo Barnett was incredible for JMU as they beat a good Old Dominion team and score 63 in the process. Absolute dude, Alonzo Barnett in that one. Great performance from North Texas, stomping UTSA. North Texas, very much for real. And your Penn State Nittany Lions.
Oh my God.
I mean, I know you're purposely not talking about this game because of the low quality television of it all. But in better news, UCLA beat Maryland on a last-second field goal, and they're
unstoppable, man.
To back check.
They're unfriggin' stoppable. All right, got a bunch of calls.
Please
on the Reverb line. Our guy Shay cut these together. They are wonderful as always. For the next 2 minutes and 40 some odd seconds, train your ears on your Week 8 reverbs.
Nothing spoils a December to remember better than Minnesota Golden Gophers. Talked to Brett Bielema last year, and now you got Matt Rule. Struggling on the road against a team that doesn't really do much anything well might be on brand for that Penn State team out there.
Dan, Ty, it's Phyllis calling from Annapolis.
Sean in San Diego.
Hey, this is Will in Maine.
Hey, this is Brandon from Dinkytown. I woke up this morning on my birthday celebrating a Gopher victory over the great Nebraska Cornhuskers. Preseason champs, 10 years running.
Carson Beck throwing 4 interceptions in one game to lose his number 2 spot to Louisville. What a gift. What a gift.
Ty, please. It's not Louisville. It's Louisville.
Whoa.
Louisville. Go Cards.
Miami Hurricanes. More like Miami Hurricanes.
Crusty seal of approval. It's not just good, it's good enough. That's the Cal football way.
I'm watching Pavia Mania run wild, brother, in Nashville. With big game James Franklin no longer coaching, at least for now. Are we ready to talk about big game Brian?
Between Georgia Tech and Vanderbilt this year, it is revenge of the nerds. And all I got to say is, Georgia, we're coming for you. Go Jackets.
I think I would rather be tortured and waterboarded than ever watch a Mike Shula offense again.
Ooh. There are some things money can't buy. For everything else, there's Kenny Dillingham. Forks up.
We're going to have to start calling Mike Elko the Cheese, because the Cheese stands alone. Last undefeated team in the SEC, baby. Giga Maggies.
As a Badger fan, just make it stop.
If everybody loses in the top 25, does that mean that Penn State's back in it? Go Grunky.
Trying to wrap my head around the fact that Virginia is 6-1 and just won on a safety.
Ty, you got to stop living in the past. Iowa has an offense now, and nothing beats Kinnick at night.
I'm just here to say, bench Arch, fire Kyle Flood, hire an OC, hook 'em horns, baby, 5-2.
As soon as Ty took Washington in the Michigan game, I went heavy on them betting. Thanks for the payout, man. Keep picking against us. I appreciate it.
Hello, this is Richard Verbal. I'd like to say that, much like the Boise State Broncos, the report of my death was greatly exaggerated. Go Orange, go Big Blue.
Wow, what a batch. What a bat. Taking some arrows over here, man.
That's Virginia, by the way, winning on a safety against Wazoo, who was in control of that game.
They were.
Virginia finds a way. Chan Mo finds a way.
Wazoo's been feisty, man. They've been feisty. They've been real feisty.
They've got a home and home with the Oregon State Beavers, who appear to be on the board at 1-7, 1-8, whatever they are now.
Crazy. Absolutely crazy. All right. Before we get to our dude alerts.
Yes.
We've definitely had a few questions, more than a few questions that have come in as we're doing this. I knew this would be a question. I starred this one in our little queue here. The question is, how many coaches are going to get fired tomorrow from Brian?
Man.
First off, anybody who claims to know this is wrong. I think based on the fact that Florida won, we can count Billy Napier as at least playing out the remainder of the season. They're going into a bye week. This would have been the time to do it. I don't think you can make that move. Even if he's a dead man walking, I don't think you could announce it publicly after a win. It's just sort of a weird message.
Buddy, I don't know, man. It's 2025. There's a lot of
2025. This is my opinion. Okay.
I know.
I've been wrong many times before. You've heard as much on our reverbs, but I would find it hard to believe that he gets ousted. But there are certainly plenty of situations around college football that leave us wondering. Luke Fickell, might they make a move mid-season after getting stomped by Ohio State 34-0?
Sure.
That would not surprise me one iota. We got another situation at Auburn, another close game with Hugh Freeze. I think the buyout is somewhere in the neighborhood of $15 million. They could probably afford that with what they've got in their pocket.
Mm-hmm.
That's another one that I think is really interesting. I would probably go to those two first and branch out from there, but truly nothing would surprise me at this point because, as you said, it is 2025, and with what we saw happen to James Franklin, there are going to be other schools that maybe want to get in the coaching carousel sooner than later just to put their name out there.
He was on game day, by the way. He was fine. He sort of stuck to his messaging. He was good.
That was a softball interview.
It was a softball PR. Like Nick Saban is going to hold a coach's feet to the fire.
That was and they have the same agent too, which
of
of course I'm sure did not factor into anything. But no, it was. I mean, I could probably give you a full 30-minute rant about the way things have gone on the PR side of things now.
I got nowhere to be. Let's make this show 2.5 hours, Ty.
I mean, it's just the national media that on some level is responsible for perpetuating the big game James thing. I mean, we've certainly made our share of jokes of it here.
Of course.
But we are not nearly as prominent as places like College Game Day, Big Noon Saturday. Many of these places have been living off that narrative that James Franklin has had a really hard time in big games. And he has. That part is not made up. But they have definitely pumped up that storyline. And now they are sort of using it to their advantage to get the interview, to talk about how it's unfair, to talk about how, the coaching, and you got Nick Saban up there talking about how, everything has gone sideways. I don't know. It just seems like they're talking out of both sides of their mouth. And I'm not going to act like I have a problem with it. It makes for interesting content, to say the least. But to get James Franklin up there and not have anybody ask him a real question about, well, you had all the facilities, you had all the money to go out and buy players, the best coaches that were on the market, to not at least examine that side of it and try to understand, do you take accountability for this? Or I don't know. I didn't hear much of that. This to me looked like more of a PR campaign than an actual interview. So not that I'm looking for the guy to be humiliated anything more than he already has on national TV. Like, I'm sure it is hard for him. I believe him as for that, but that was not a real interview that we got.
No.
And that was an interview that happens when you've got really close relationships with coaches that you want to preserve.
Yeah.
And we see a lot of that. So I just, I came away wanting a little bit more insight into where things came off the swivel. I I thought his best
But
answer.
that also wasn't going to be the platform for
It wasn't going to be the
It's not
platform.
an intimate place to really reflect on anything. Yeah.
But that's what I want to know.
Yeah.
That's really what I would like to know more of. So maybe that wasn't necessarily the platform for it. I understand that, but there wasn't a real question that was asked to him other than when Reese Davis said, "Hey, where did this come off the swivel?"
Right.
You know, have you given any reflection to why things went the way they did over the last 3 games for you? And that was the most honest answer we heard, which was him saying, "Honestly, I don't know."
Right.
I don't know
Which
if
is
anybody
fine.
does.
Which is
That's
fine. And now we know that the expectation for the new Penn State head coach is to win a national championship, and anything less than that is unacceptable.
I don't know. It'll be interesting to see where things go on the coaching side for sure.
Yep.
Moving forward, because I think that's probably going to be a storyline that only intensifies the rest of the way.
Sure.
Dan Rubenstein, let's get to our dude alerts if you're cool with that.
I'm ready.
We will have plenty of time for questions now moving forward, but it is time to pay sweet homage to those who deserve it most after week 8. Who do we got?
All right. Jay Ducker, Temple, monster. Temple, huge performance against Charlotte. Dylan Riley at Boise State was huge. Caleb Hawkins on the ground was huge for North Texas. How about Diago? Pavia and MK Young combined for 22 for 168 in their win over LSU and a very good LSU defense. I mentioned Torrey Blaylock for Oklahoma was great on the ground. Jordan Marshall was great on the ground for Michigan. How about, is it Joe Fagnano? I don't know how to pronounce it. For UConn, his connection with Skylar Bell, the Wisconsin transfer, terrific in their win over BC. The combo of Isaac Brown and Chris Bell for Louisville in a winning effort. Darius Taylor on the ground. Jeremiah Love on the ground. Gunnar Stockton doing everything. Haynes King and Malachi Hosley for Georgia Tech doing everything. And the ultimate dude, Ty, Mr. Shohei Ohtani! 3 home runs, one of which out of the park, 6 innings, no runs, 10 strikeouts. Best performance in Major League Baseball history.
I mean, that was pretty wild. I gotta admit. I saw that when I woke up this morning. I was like, wait, what happened now? You gotta be kidding me.
What's the calculus here? Incredible pitching performance and single-handedly beat the Major League Baseball team with the best record in the ring. Okay. Pretty cool.
I don't know. That was something else. It's a shame all the good teams are out of the playoffs, but alas, I'm happy to
Oregon
hear that.
destroyed Rutgers, by the way. We didn't really mention that.
Shohei Ohtani's having a good outing here.
It was like 900 yards of offense for Oregon against Rutgers.
So look, obviously much more to talk about. Week 8 now officially in the books. We appreciate you stopping by. We encourage you to like. We encourage you to subscribe. We encourage you to comment wherever you can. If you're not willing to do that, please email us solidverbal@gmail.com. Let us know where we're right, where we're wrong. Any takes that you have. Everybody is welcome to yell at us, to agree with us, to say something altogether different. We just want to make sure that the Verballerhood feels like they're part of the community here.
For sure.
If you are further interested in helping support what we do, you can go out to verballers.com. That is our Patreon, where we offer ad-free episodes and bonus content. You can play in the game. You can vote in the poll. By the way, for those who made it this far, go out to our Patreon at verballers.com.
Yes.
Sign up. Even as a free member, Sunday morning, 7 a.m. Eastern time, we'll open up the polls to everybody who's a free member.
That's very kind and generous.
We need more input on where to rank these teams now because of what went down in the top 25. So if you're a free member or a paid member, we'll open up the balloting to everybody this week just to get more folks who are interested. Again, you can sign up for free. Not going to do anything. Not going to try and give you the hard sell or anything like that. But I just want to get more votes. So
9
you'll see
minutes
that come
left.
through.
9 minutes left. Clock is ticking. Stanford up a touchdown with the ball, 20-13 against Florida State. What will this mean to anybody listening on demand after the fact? Nothing or everything.
And I mean, the Mike Norvell question is, I don't know. Supposedly they weren't having conversations behind the scenes about Norvell.
Yeah.
But it was Stanford in the hinterland, so I don't know.
Yep. That's tough.
Why don't we leave it there? Again, hit follow, hit subscribe so that you don't miss the episodes. We'll be back on Tuesday trying to put a little bit more logic trying to analyze all of this a little bit further as best we can, talk through any games that we didn't get to. Of course, we'll reveal that Verballer Top 12 poll and give you an advanced look at Week 9. By the way, when we do this episode next Saturday night, it's just going to be me.
Is that what your plan is?
That's my plan.
You're going solo?
I'm going to go solo. I'm going to give it a shot. I've never done that before. So for people who are tuning in, apologies in advance if it looks and sounds a little bit different, but we're going to give it the old college try because you're going to be at a fall wedding.
I am going to be at a fall wedding on the West Coast. I will submit either like a reverb or I'll make a video for you that you can use as an intro video for the episode or something. But no.
I want you in your suit, in your tux. Are you wearing a tux or is it a suit?
No. So it's cocktail attire preferred. Not
okay.
black.
I want you in your preferred cocktail attire.
Thank you.
At the venue, creating a video there.
Okay.
And just as organic as humanly possible.
You got it. Done.
For that guy over there, my good friend Dan Rubenstein, for myself, Ty Hildebrand, as always, thank you so much for downloading, for listening, for supporting what we do. We will be back on Tuesday. In the meantime, you know the drill. As always, stay solid.
Peace.